Oh.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, for a while you didn't come back here.
The bigger the number, the bigger the number, the less likely you're seeing it.
No.
No.
Don't try to get the number up when you see me more.
No.
Use your life, you can't do that. Use your life, gotta grow.
How do we get more life?
We'll keep right
Oh, that's how we save electricity, huh?
Yeah, so I think everyone is kind of have a delay in the process right now too because of the
Hey!
community workshop.
Yeah.
Right, for is it 2 months?
Yeah.
Yeah, we since the 0 for 2 months. Yeah. Everyone kind of now have that open yes because of community.
Yeah, more consistent.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think let's say for the last few times we already have so many emotional questions, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Oh,
Yeah, so it's about team growing. Let's ask a better question, different question.
Yeah.
Um, I was about to say something different.
No.
That was okay, but mine was too cool with it. Where did you get the material from?
Reason.
Huh?
Reason.
Easy.
Don't. It's all my pizza. I didn't cook it.
Sit down.
Don't take it long.
Yeah, do we keep the door open?
Yeah.
Okay, when you go upstairs and you at this point, what do you do? Like you just blind it.
No,
And
see.
then so then like I forgot what I'm about to say. No.
No way I could have.
Dang.
No space. No space.
I was forget the nonsense thing, you know, I was about to Oh my god, Karen? Is that Karen? Huh? Long time no see, Karen. A days ago? Did we open the window in the back?
Yeah.
Still cool. All the way, please.
Okay, anyway, let's get into questions.
Okay, being balance.
No.
Or you will lose. You will lose, limits balance.
Hey Phil,
He was SP.
That's me?
No, he's MP. He's MP.
MP?
Yeah, he's saying when to be comfortable with you.
Yeah.
Right?
Just talk about
We
blue
just talk about like anime was super comfortable.
Alright, sit. Yeah, there are more chairs.
And then that me.
Or actually, you guys can, can go make a circle, like, there are more people. I don't know how you guys want to set it up. Spread out a little. No, I mean, mainly for more people to come in. Okay, so, whenever you're seeing the number get stuck at a certain number, it's, why do you think the number is stuck? Like, we can't go past 30 or 35 or 40. Like a German seller is always somewhere around 30, 31, and then back 27. Kind of fluctuating around at 30, hovering around that. Why?
Yeah.
I was gonna say more leaders.
What does that leader have anything to do with a number?
Yeah, they'll have more examples.
Handle the process.
Yeah.
Handle the what? Handle the process. What is the process that you're referring to?
So that's the process.
Handling what? Handling what? What about the process that you need to handle?
Building up the candidates.
Building up candidates, yes.
See, that's all.
So we did have many launches though,
Yeah.
and then they quit.
Yeah.
So was it just only the process, or it's also the launches, not just which is also the new launch. So the new launch and then the candidates are what we always keep losing. So why do we lose IBOs and why do we lose candidates? What is the common reason?
The reason, I think the reason why the IPO is we losing IPO.
So first thing first is why did IBO quit? Give me the result. What do you refer to?
We're not making money.
So money, aka the team. They don't know how to get the team together. What else?
They don't reflect from the tenants they bring through the process.
When you say result, what do you refer to besides getting the number? Personal growth, you know, so they don't learn something new, right? What else? Maybe they're not they're not living the regular life that they used to live in the business. But we don't make the business their regular life. So they feel like when they're getting into it, it's like, you know, once in a while we're going to the gym, and when you work out, you feel a little tired, you feel a little bit exhausted, right? But it's not to the point where you're getting extremely burned out. When you go home, you don't even want to do anything else. And our business looks like that. So that is for IBO, that's why they quit. But what about candidates? What caused candidate to drop?
The friendship? Lack of friendship.
You know? So, at the end of the day, if you guys want to really grow the number of the team, we gotta have more people that could be able to handle things that I just talked about. And in order for you to really be able to handle that, you have to take a moment to kind of remember when you were new, at the point when you were thinking of quitting, at that point when you were feeling very discouraged, what did you hear? Which person said something to you? What kind of case, what kind of example you have seen from the cross that scare you a little bit? Other people to scare you, or the book or the audio? What topic was that? And I think most of the time people kind of like forgot their past a little bit. And so when the new people are coming in, they become very irrelevant. They're not relatable anymore. You know, so it requires a lot of reflection. And I think that's one of the things that we're not good at. Because once we're getting out of our problems, we totally forgot. How did we get out of it? We're not trying to look back and get the most lesson out of it. For me, I'm the opposite. Every single time I help someone to get out of their problems, I'll make a video. Check out the Facebook page. There's a lot of videos. YouTube.
Like the newest video, I think on the announcement.
Yeah.
Yeah, emotional bond.
Yeah, like every single time I'm getting out of it, or, you know, I never get out of it before, but I helped someone get out of it, now I'll make a video. So the question that I have for the team it's how many times you have been saved in the butt by your uplines, and what have you done for the team and for the candidates for the IBOs? Like for example, you know, there was a time you were so down, and the only thing you can tell people is I felt like I'm not very excited. I was very, discouraged. I didn't want to go to see the team. I felt guilty, such and such. But then how did you bounce back from it? You don't have any other reason other than, well, I just, let time fly. And, until slowly I forgot everything. And I forgot about the crutch I had for myself and the little depressions. I forgot about everything, and I've come back. You know, that's how you get back. So now the next person, let's say Kevin, is going to the same thing. She can't show Kevin what to do. And that's why IBOs drop, or that's why candidates drop. Because IBO never trying to kind of get a lesson out of something. Look at the number of training we have in NorCal. Look at the number of lessons or reflections or, things that you guys are trying to keep out. Sometimes it's not really about the lessons you got from your downtime, but also the lesson you got from your success time. Like the reason why I got these many candidates is because of such and such and such. But we don't have that. So we survive purely on a few individuals that can get a reflection out of their downtime. You know, I say the same thing a few years or months ago to Susan. Like, if we combine all of her mistakes and the lessons she can learn, that could be made into a book or like a function, and people pay. But we don't get anything now. It's I have to go and teach again the things I taught her years ago. So so at the end of the day, it's why could we not get something out of it? Generally, that's what it is, but why though? Why would people move on?
That's okay. They don't go through downtime. It's like for like you're not acceptable. Like we're taught that we shouldn't dwell on our own mistakes, but then that makes us move on to quick from the lessons we have to learn before we. It's like that lesson of looking for the lesson before we. Keep making the same mistake again until you learn the hard way.
Yeah, that could be one reason.
The thing is also like some don't step on it. Like say for myself, like I have reflected and I have realized like what I reflected on, and then I did was able to rethink some candidates like even when you feel like talking about like I was able to share with her. Oh, I remember I had that same feeling. This is what I did. She did it. They me. Then she just wanted to talk again. I was like, hey, I haven't reflected to the Sophie. And she helped me out with how to reflect my feelings because I felt insecure. So this is what it is. And then now she's a little bit active on the chat. But then like I see the results, I'm not out about it. So I see like I think we all each have that ability, but we're not helping people.
Yep. And so collectively we need to help out each other. So I guess the other reason is sometimes you misidentify where the mistake came from, or the root of it. So you're failing to identify it. And the other reason is even when you be able to identify it, the way you kind of deliver it, the way you kind of explain it to a new generation, it's not very effective. It's like when I say things, I always include a consequence, and that consequence have to be as much scary as it can be, so that people gotta refrain from repeating the same thing, right? Or like and when I'm giving out that example, I always use them as example. I'm not using other people's example. I'm using Katie. Let's say I talk to Katie and say, hey, if you don't do this in your scenario, let's say I'm trying to teach him how to think forward, how to plan for his future. Right? And I talked to him about someone that failed in the business because they didn't try to plan 24 hours ahead of time, a year ahead of time, right? But when I talked to him, the fact that he's not planning things ahead of time would not scare him. What scared him the most is the green card. He'll be deported. So when I'm teaching him that lesson, I have to use the green card example to scare him. So it's a lot of things. It's the gut to look back and to face your problem and to reflect and then to identify the problem properly, and then comes the ability to deliver it in a way that people can understand it. And those of you guys that don't, and then here's another problem, it's some people are very afraid of making that many mistakes. And so they don't have any other mistake to kind of look back and reflect. Like for example, the appointment is given to the upline to do. The presentation is it's not volunteer. Okay, you're doing the workshop. I don't want to volunteer. I don't want to open my mouth as much as I can, or talk to people about my evil or negative whatever thought process I have, so then I can be corrected. And so that didn't happen so much. So then it didn't show. It's not that exposed. And so that would be also the reason why they don't get any lesson out of it to teach others. And then another thing is, when I'm giving you a case from a cross line, that's also someone else's lessons. But when you read it, you can't connect it to a future scenario that it might happen to you or your team and your future allies. Like let's say, when I'm talking about a cultural problem, for example, like I talk about Jessica team, they are not helping each other when it comes to bringing a bunch of candidates to the meeting. So when you're reading it, because you have never really run an event together, you have never really ever hosted an event in NorCal. So when you heard your cross line making that mistake, you can't relate to your situation. So you don't think that's something that you need to take into your heart or like take into account. You know what I'm talking about? So every single time you send your dollar a text, you have to connect that to something that is beneficial to them in the future, or else they won't see the point of reading it. You know, so to create a thirst for knowledge is tough because a lot of time people read the book, listen to the audio, they can't connect that to one day they will need it, or how would that benefit their end goal. You know, so then when they're looking at the book or the material, they always get bored. The Milan go to meeting, they don't get sleepy. The Sandwich always is always sleepy. Why? Because they can't connect that to the future thing, so they feel like the meeting is there. It's pointless. Yeah. Can we turn that light back on? Brighter. Yeah. So I just want to point out the root cause of the NorCal problem. It's at the end of the day we don't have that many teachers. We don't have that many people that can add values. We don't have that many people that can teach, that can add values to candidates. A few days ago, you guys probably joined Luna's meeting with the candidates. You remember that? How many of the things that she talked about couldn't be said by you guys? Most of that you guys probably heard like a million times. But you know, there wasn't an intention. Like, let's say Tom, would she go to her room and she get irritated when today I have to join a Zoom that my upline had to repeat something that she repeated in 2021, and she got so mad to the point that she took her phone out and she practiced herself speaking that topic. Let's say hash. Let's say you know, that or this and that, or you know, when the reason why maybe Tom doesn't see the point of repeating that is she either not having that choleric to always getting irritated because when someone's doing something so good, why can't I not? I can do that too. So I don't see that. And in order for you to raise the self-image or the competitiveness or the choleric of an organization, it takes one person to teach people around them how to be frustrated. Like, for example, you should be frustrated at Luna's talk because it's something that you have heard before. Like, because the whole time that she grew up, she always trying to find, I'm just giving an example, she always trying to find peaceful meaning out of everything. I'll give you an example, like, always apply that minus method. His mom is retired? Yeah, it's okay, my mom, she has her own life. The reason why he could do that great because his family is different and my family is different. You know, for me, I'm thinking, he's also from the same country I came from. If he can do it, why can't I? So it's the same problem, but the messes that they kind of create out of a situation from the Black people, it's like that. So it takes a choleric guy that living in the same house with them, and that's what I'm always doing when I'm traveling to a different headquarters. I'm in the same house, and I'm like, at this point, you only came back home and you have done only 2 tasks. Why did you sit there? Why you're supposed to be mad because the James guy is in Vancouver, he's running back and forth, he's doing 20-something meetings a month or days. You know, why you're sitting there? And I'm teaching him that, why are you upset? Because I'm just saying the same thing that I said to your team a few months ago. At this point, you're supposed to be mad. You have to punch the wall or, you know, bang your head into the door or something like that. You're just supposed to be mad. So all it takes is someone that every day you have to remind people that where they need to get mad. And over time, their status slowly get upgraded. And they start doing it by instant, like subconsciously they start doing it. Now, why am I this choleric? Because I grew up in a house, and my mom always talked about the other kids, and everywhere I go, she always kind of brag about her son. That, oh, my son can do this, my son can do that. He's very smart, even though I haven't been so. He always try to say I'm smart. And so over time, it just everywhere I go, I always try to look at what other people could do that I cannot. It's very quick. That always comes before the part I say, hey, good job. You are very quick to say good job. I'm taking a long time to say it. I have to look at it. If I can do it, then I'll say good job. If I cannot do it, I will be mad. It's just like the natural thing. Yeah. So, and I don't want a whole community of collectors. But before that, I want the whole community of like that. And we are the latter, not the former, right? So it's like the whole team right now, we are not irritated by things that we're seeing. Or like those guys can get the legs, why cannot I? Or I cannot. Or you know, if they spoke for work, if that guy spoke for workshop, why can't I? Or if they'll have a meeting with that guy, why can't I get that meeting? Like it's that thing. And now try to see how that would change your candidate. Now your candidate is coming in and say, you know, let's say Betty has a candidate and the candidate said, you know, I don't find a reason why I should do this. But because Karen and Betty, they are very, very like competitive in everything they see. They can find a good reason to fight something in every area of their life. So now Karen is gonna really try to wear the candidate's shoes and say, hey, if I were you, I would pay back to mom and dad this way. If I were you, I would feel like suck to living in their apartment. Why would I get allowance from them? They should get my allowance. I'll give them I'll give them the allowance. You know, so if Karen or maybe Betty don't see certain things like that, then how would they be able to instill or embed that ability to get upset or irritated or take responsibility in everything around them for the candidates? And that's the reason why the candidates stay in the process. You know why now my candidates stay in the process longer? Because I get irritated. And when I get irritated, I get motivated. Do you know that irritation and frustration leads to motivation? How come I cannot do it? You know, things like that. So that explains why some of the candidates of yours, they can't fight motivation. Some of the downline, same thing. Does it make sense? So I'll give that's just one example of what it is, right? Or you know, for Kwan right now, it's at this phase of her business, you know, she is trying to see how do I deliver or address the concerns that she tried to say before, but she didn't know how to put it in a proper perspective so people can kind of understand or comprehend. Or it hit people, hit the nail on the head, and get them to take it to their heart and, you know, reflect deeply, you know? So at every level, they get frustrated about different things. But we are dominantly flag, and so if I'm looking at the whole Maya's flag, all the candidates in there, you better find somebody that already have that gene, you know, that DNA, you know? But if they get in and they flag, I can't find a way for them to get out of it. Because I look at the whole live sponsorship, what's your hope? Good for you, it's okay, life is gonna be awesome.
No,
If you can do it,
no.
if you cannot do it,
No, I tried
I know, that we're attempting to count four is what I'm saying. Just based on our track record, we didn't like that. What I'm saying is now we should count more.
Question based on the point earlier you said, let's say yesterday Luna kind of did the acquisition for us, you know, just had a basic training, honestly, like cash, whatever for the candidate, and you say that, you know, like us, you should have a healthy ego frustrated to actually practice, but some people, they say that, oh, I'm focusing on looking read only right now, then how can why I have to do that? So how can you connect, you know, like practice the topic is benefit for them as well.
I mean, it's the reason why people hardly can just get irritated or like competitive in so many things, because as soon as they get into one thing, they become very jam-packed with it. Like it takes them forever to get out of it. You know why? The new video I made this afternoon, I talked about the ability to break it down to the little baby step. So when they're trying to get from 1 to 10, they want to make a big jump, but they don't have a timeline or a roadmap or like a develop that journey to go slowly one step at a time. So let's say if somebody want to practice meet and greet one, they just want to do that meet and greet, but they don't want to like the meet and greet has 4 or 5 different separate parts, and I want to master part 1 and part 2, or let's say they want to master DTM, they don't set a goal on I want to do 20 initiating today. I don't want to do deepening, and until I'm comfortable with initiating, I want to do 20 deepening in a week. And once I'm getting out of it, I want to do 20 Masawa. I don't look to get the contacts or anything. I just want to talk about my story. So they want to make a big jump from 1 to 10 right away, which is I want to get 20 contacts. And the problem is you can't even smile at people. You can't even speak English properly. I mean, why would you set that goal? So that's why they get stuck into an MG1 and take forever. Okay, so that's reason number 1. It's they don't know how to develop a game plan to complete one task.
Yeah.
That's why they can't be choleric in a different area because they got stuck with one, right? Here is another thing. The other reason why they cannot be frustrated about different things in their life is because they can't see thing 1, thing 2, thing 3, goal 4, goal 5, goal 6, goal 7, all of those are the things that they want to accomplish are interconnected. They're just seeing it as different, separate reasons. Like I'll give you an example. Like this morning, they say they want to master a meet and greet one. At night, they say they want to master public speaking, and then the next day, they're up like talking about, they're up like talking about how to plan their day ahead of time. So they see these 3 things as 3 separate things. But if you don't know how to really time management and manage your time and prioritize your days, how would you make time to learn DTM? And if you don't know how to manage your time and prioritize your tasks, when you do public speaking, you kind of deliver it in the wrong order. So they're all connected, and the 3 of them serve as for you to drop a new leg and present and deliver your idea efficiently so the guy can pick up the new information, and then you can also teach the guy how to time management for himself too. So it's getting you to 2x5 and 3x10 by educating a new guy. So it's all connected. But you see the 3 of them as, oh, here we go again. I have no more space. My brain is blank right now. I don't have more space for me to add anything else. And so you easily get full. Your tank is full. It's not because of, there's no, what do you call that, capacity, but because you cannot digest the thing that you put in. But you really have a big tank. It's just that the things that you put in, you can't digest it. So you can't have enough space for other things to come in. You with me on that? And we don't have someone that can sit with these guys one-on-one to kind of like hear them out and say, where did you get stuck at? So I used to do that for the big team back in 2022 when I went to the headquarters and at the beginnings. I did that a little bit that for Quan. I did that for Daria. I did that for Stella, and later I helped a little bit with Van and such, and back in the day with Susan and Jeff and Andy. But as the team getting bigger, there's so many people and I cannot keep up anymore. It's like one person has 5 to 6, 7, 8, 9 different flutters and complication, and for me to kind of unravel and that knots, just too much effort. I'll give you one example. Okay, now let's say Maya came to me and said, my upline said something to me and made me feel upset. So she focusing on the words that they say, but so I sit down with her. Okay, so watch how I'm gonna declutter that for her. Okay, so I'm gonna show her that, hey, this is not the first time you're saying the same thing. You have said that since 2019. Do you remember that? So for 3 to 4 years, how did that help you so far? And the moment when your upline stops saying it, could you self-drive yourself, or could you push yourself by yourself, or are you self-driven still, or you actually get lost? He says you get lost. So, but now when someone's saying it, then you deny it. You don't want them to push you. And you continue to keep up with the same pattern you have had since 2019. And how did that help? You know? And when Jeff or Stella said a certain thing to you, the reason why you get irritated because you don't understand that they are in a position where they have a lot of people in their team, so they feel like the fact that they're still sitting there and talk to you still, it's just simply so generous of them already. You know? You probably thinking that you should be praised or applauded for the little work you do, but you know, your 10 is actually their 3, so it's a lot for you, but it's not a lot for them. So, see, so I'll give you that example. So once I'm sitting with her, I clear that out. Will that allow her to come back to Jeff Seller again? Yes. So who would do that for some of the people? A lot of times you're going to her and you're saying, you know, you always have a good intention for you. They always love you. And then they come back and they get the same saying. And they get hurt. So who's going to do that for all the people in our team? Because you're not sponsor like the choleric people. You sponsor a bunch of people that easily get hurt, low self-image, and every day they come up with a bunch of complication and a whole bunch of things. So bottom line, you know, I mean, it's just so much. You know, so the idea is as soon as one person is free from those problems, you're supposed to help more people to kind of interpret or translate the language of the upline. Or the example earlier was to break it down step by step instead of like going straight to 20 contacts. You should do 2 deepening and then 3 masawa. So that's what I really mean by one-on-one coaching people. And every single time Stella had certain Milan allies are having problem, they always were told to text Phil. And so when I'm doing that, you know, Stella was focusing on her strength. She went out, she produced, right? So then now that her team grew bigger, and she didn't even know how I did that back in the day. So then the whole team got stuck. You know, and I try not to go to the headquarters for some time because I want people to slowly learn how to overcome their problems. Because if I keep coming, they're gonna keep going out there and do what are they good at, and that left me doing the same task for decades. And so now think of that as allies. What about candidates? Who is gonna clear that things out for them? Now, did I mention these things in my video? Yes. But not everybody had that book smart. Okay, what do I mean by book smart? Book smart means let's say when you watch an open meeting, you're seeing it as an open meeting. For me, I broke it down into 6, 7 different parts that you could not. Okay, so the Y selection process, then the ESBI, and then the industrial age versus information age, and then the Amway products and number and all that, and then comes the BW, and then comes the covering objection. So that's how I broke it down. And now I'm looking at the MG2 slide. There's also ESBI, there's also information age versus industrial age, then comes also the number and you know the things, the napkin plan, and then the covering objections. So when I look at the two MG2 and Bolt plan, I can see that 70% is similar. The other 30% is ESBI in MG2 is diving deeper into it, and also you don't mention the name of the company in the MG2, right? And you know, so that's how the book smart people, they pick up information. When they go in a meeting, the moment when someone try to talk about something, they can name the topic of it. So let's say if today, you know, the whole time I've been sitting here and I'm training, for you, you're trying to process that information for yourself. But the book smart people, this is what they do. They call the name. They create a name for it. Like, for example, mental capacity. That was self-created. I name it so I can easily, you know, the next time I'm going to someone else's CD or a meeting or a BDS and they touch on it, I know they're talking about that. Or the ideas of, internalization or the ideas of, what do you call that? Declutter, yeah, all of that is, I'm just coming up with my own terms. And so it's easy for me to note it down. And so when you guys listening to those kind of CDs or videos and all of that, you can't name it. And so one day, when you're working with one of the downlines and she's running through a similar problems, this is similar, but which page am I note? I don't have like a name of that folder. I don't know what does that call. Where can I get that from? And so you can't teach it back. You can't practice speaking my topics. And so when you go on stage, you don't know what to say. So if you put me in front of a candidates after a ballpoint one or a follow one, it's very easy for me to know what to say because I already have 3 to 4 things that I always going to do for every candidate. You know, so I have things that I need to touch on. And even when I touch on 3 and you distract me, you talk about something else, eventually I still remember the 4th one wasn't mentioned. It's very hard for me to get distracted. That's the book smart kind of thing, and I don't know how to teach. So it's like if you listen to my foundation videos, right? You listen to time management. For you, you're looking at it as a whole video. For me, I broke it down. This section I mentioned this section I touch on this. So then, even 25 years later, if you want me to talk about time management again, I still remember exactly what needed to be touched on. I didn't learn by memorizing, and I still don't. So that's how I can deliver things fast. When I go on stage, you don't see I use note for that reason. Because I know there are 5 things for me to touch on, and that's enough. So how you store information and how you take note, if it's not being trained, if you don't teach people how to be book smart, how to take note, you will build a long-term active income the rest of your life. Because the system can never do anything for them. The moment you disappear, they fail to reflect. You have to sit there with them and say, oh, this is needed for you. This applies for this situation. They can't just looking at their case or videos or like I said the meeting earlier, 3 hours. They can just sit there for hours. They don't know which saying that can be used in MG1. They don't know which part, and they can't actually address people with a victim mentality. You can't name it. That's why those meetings becomes boring for you.
Did you say that a lot of people don't do a lot of the work to be able to digest? Because I would say the best way to be able to take in information and digest is to apply. And so that's what I feel like it is stopping about doing. Like if you don't learn and apply to digest information to be able to handle people, so that they can be able to break those quick and very down. Because I know that from doing the work and then you learn like from being consistent, that from board planning I had like one thing that we talked about ASBI, and like the way that's work. But then that is actually connected to continuity just because I have these problems and these lessons that I learned from dealing with people. So I would say that connects. But then like having people having that desire to break into section, because it all correlates to us not failing. I've like talked to a lot of boss and everyone else that
Not really the failing enough, but sometimes when you fail, you can't make a name for that problem. Like for example, like for example, this afternoon, I got rejected. So when I got rejected from a DTM, I felt painful, and I quickly name it self-image. You name it techniques. So when you're going back from work, you're going to a meeting. When the speaker talked about self-image, you didn't take note because you thought you have a problem with technique. Technique is not the reason why you get rejected. The guy's not looking. That's it. The reason why you feel painful because your assignment sucks. But so you can't call it the right name. And so when you go into a meeting, you can't see. And sometimes people know they have self-image. But when the speaker trains, they don't know the speaker is talking about self-image.
yeah.
So it's a combo of not being able to call a solution, the training, give them a name for it. You cannot name the training and you cannot name the problem.
I think because like the reason why they not just on that, you know. So example like told me, like sometimes like when we actually look at like a social media, right? So at least couple days, like a couple of weeks, I start focusing on watching the report, recording, maybe like MG1 or kind of stuff. So when I go to the Facebook and then like social media, there's some code, and then I start counting those things like, oh, like old college business percent taxing. Oh, I can take this to the MG1. I can talk about this to the candidate, so they understand like why employees are not, why you have to, why this is not employees.
So then when you be able to do that, you were able to name the problem of a candidate as not being able. So why would somebody need that information? Because there's always thinking that maybe you talk about side hustle, and what do you talk about? The number.
Yeah, the reason why I have to start business.
Oh, the reason why I start business. See, so now I was just gonna name it something like the reason why people get stuck in the E quadrant, because they don't know that what is the resources out there, what is about the B quadrant. Is it they still having that like fallacy, that misbelief that getting into the B quadrant requires a lot of money, requires a lot of problems, or maybe they also do not understand the limitation of having a job. So then that's how I name it, and I call that topic why entrepreneurship. So I call that, and so when I make a talk, I call it why entrepreneurship. So I refer to those kind of patients that they have that problem that I was running into during NG1 and NG2. Are you with me on that?
Yeah.
It means if I talk to her today, she said, I don't need a reason to start my business. And then the next day I talked to this guy, he said, starting business costs money. And then I talked to the guy next day, and he said, I don't know how to do it. I need mentorship. And then I talked to her, and she said, I don't even know. I don't even have a dreams and goals. And so a little bit here and there. And so then the why entrepreneurship touch on the world of life, mentorship, the reason why job sucks, and you thought it's enough, but even the word enough itself, it's not even enough. You have a job. So it's from collecting different things, and I name it why entrepreneurship, and then I'll make medicine out of it.
That's how you do that because
and nobody ever called that term, making that terms. I'm just making up my own terms. Why entrepreneurship? So when you say the word why entrepreneurship, in my dictionary, that's what I understand. Now I'm going to somebody out there, they're making an audio called why entrepreneurship. In their dictionary, that term is different. The reason why all of you guys understand the same thing when I say why entrepreneurship, because we're all promoting that audio. But now we're going out there and someone say mental capacity. What they mean is just some sort of psychology thing. That's not the same, multitasking that I mentioned, I talked about. So not necessarily my term is right, but it's good to unify my team. Like now, if someone you bring a candidate, you say this guy has a problem. He already listened to the CD called Why Entrepreneurship. Okay, so he already vaccinated on A, B, C, D, E. I'm done with this. Or he already listened to this 5-star employee 5-star business. So if I go to you, I say he already listened to why employee cannot run business. You didn't even know what were the field diseases that he was already vaccinated from. For me, I know, because I could break that talk down into 5 to 6 sections. And I know those 6 or 5 diseases were already vaccinated. But when you look at a talk, okay, it's attitude, you just call it attitude or mindset. And so now if I say my candidate already listened to that, you ended up overlapping and covering the same thing that the CD has already talked about. You see that? So the way that I break things down, it allowed me to just kind of catch up with the candidates faster. You don't have to update me a whole lot. You just need to say, hey, what CD he already listened to? In some case, he listened to everything, he didn't get it. Then I have to re-educate him again. But just by saying, he listened to the audio, I assume a few of them were already addressed. Are you with me on that? So now that makes most of my material, they don't overlap each other. Because I broke them down by information. The only audios that all gonna really overlap each other, guess what it is? Self-image and self-love. Those are the two that might collide a little bit. Or the material that might collide a little bit, it's those CD that have something in common, which is critical thinking, you know, the EQ, IQ versus the why employee can't start business. So those are the part that is overlap. You know, so what I'm trying to teach you guys is the ability to put information in your brain, save it in a way that it lasts forever, and later you can deliver it. You know, and you won't forget it. Like there's no way, you know, let's say I'm gonna launch this IBO named A. It's easy for me to check which diseases that he wasn't vaccinated from. Like I have a particular number specifically that the person have to be vaccinated from, like 60 disease, for example. Then you can launch. So it's easy for me to kind of measure and can assess or can like gauge the candidates and knowing where they at. Just by talking with them, or maybe the moment when they ask me this question, I can quickly see their problem. Like the moment they ask, but Phil, at the end of the day, I don't understand that. Why do we have to buy these products? It's expensive. You know, like just the terms that they say, or they ask something like, but Phil, why do we have to worship people? Or it's a question they're giving me like, but Phil, like, why do we teach people to not listen to their parents? Can we tell that they haven't listened to why employee haven't start business? Can't start business?
Yeah.
Because it's just the question they ask. It shows that they lack of that rebellion. It's to develop that trust for their society out there, and that was already addressed in that audio. And if they already listened to that audio and they still ask that question, what did I tell you? They didn't get anything out of it. It's very easy for me to listen to somebody questions, statement that they have made, and I can tell them what CD did they lack of, they didn't listen to. And sometimes I don't even rely entirely on the audio, because the audio that I talked about has 5 parts, and those 5 parts are in here. I know exactly what it is. And sometimes I don't need to deliver that 5, because they only need 2. So I take 2 of it, I'll talk to them, rather than give them the whole CD. And they listen to 5. It wastes their time. Are you with me on that?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I know that they only need the 2 problems from the question they ask, and they expose their weakness. Now that doesn't make them a bad person, okay? It's just that their mindset needs to be fixed a certain thing. But how could I really hear people problems through questions and statements and actions and name it and be able to call it a name, and then, you know, I'll give them a CD because I know that CD will cure their problem. So let's say Max is my new leg, and you know, I'm helping Max to taking a candidate through the process. When I diagnose a candidate, I say, this guy has problem 1, 2, and 3. In his mind, he start to develop a concept of 1, 2, and 3. So if the person act like this, that's 1. If person asks this question, that's 2. If this person is relying on parents, problem 3. So how me and him name a problem is the same. So a lot of time you're helping your downlines to walk people through the process. You're missing the last part, the part after the appointments, that you are gonna teach your downlines on what do you call it, how do you look at people behavior, and you can call that a problem. So if I work with Mimi, for example, I helped her with 15, 20, 35 MG1, MG2. After the appointments, I said, I don't think this guy has potential. I think this guy is fast. I think this guy has this problem. I'll give a name for that problem. I'll give a CD for that problem. So in the back of Mimi's mind now, she knows what is it called, what CD that the guy needs. And later, when I'm disappeared, Mimi can just go listen to that CD and do the delivery by herself. I don't have to do it.
That's the goal.
But if you're looking at the coach, look, Quan, Stella, they do appointments for decades, and none of their downlines can replicate. What does that tell you? It's a problem after the meeting. there's no conversation of why did you decide to talk about that? I feel like this guy is slow, fast, potential. What did you look at to really draw a conclusion? What is the name that you call for that kind of disease? What medicine you recommend? So once I do a few things like that, my guy is good to go. I don't need to kind of like train or teach or kind of guide a guy one-on-one anymore. You can ask following up question, but you can't get it.
So can you generalize like the way that we put the information in brain into so we can memorize it longer and easier to recall later and also to delete it that can you generalize the formula or something?
Isn't it like option 7 for knowledge longer like 10?
No, it's been answer, right? Everybody's been with me, right?
Yeah.
I talked about you being able, in order for you to keep the knowledge longer, you need to be able to make a name for it. And the best way is you should name it the same way your outline named it. So later when we talk about that terms, we all know it. Like for example, let's say you say somebody have, let's say diarrhea. We know exactly what is diarrhea, and so when you say diabetes, somebody have it. Okay, I know what you're talking about. So you need to try to kind of like break things down. You don't listen to the whole talk by a whole meeting. Some people are listening to the talk by quote. Oh, this part is the part I need. That's the only part that stood out from the talk for the last 3 hours. The rest I didn't remember. So then they listen just for themselves. But if you listen, you have to break it down into separate parts. This part addresses this problem, this part addresses the other problem. And then you make a name for it. So let's say in my phone, there's a folder called, let's say vision. There's a folder. So when I say the word vision, I refer to some talks of Sugit about, structure, how this structure lead into, let's say later you can attend NAGC, you can lead your business to Crown Ambassador, you 2x5, 3x10, and vision of later how the team looks like in terms of diversity. So when someone talks about it, I have a place to kind of store. It's all in that same folder. And then I have another folder called mentality. So when someone talks about it, I'll get it out. And then I have another folder called mentorship, or how to really work efficiently, communicate efficiently with your mentor. Then I went to function, let's say the speaker says something like, you have life to do with everything except one thing. That's reading your mind. Oh, that's a good quote. I'm going to take it down. I'm going to put it in that folder. So later, if I'm going to do my talk, I just go to the folder. But if you're looking at the whole talk of the speaker, you only see one talk. I saw 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 different topics. So then once she's done, I can go up and do at least 6, 7 of it. I can repeat 70, 80% of her talk. Because I'm not listening to the talk for the sake of fixing my problem. I'm emotional right now. I'm listening to it for the sake of later, I need to break this down. I need to teach that.
So like for example, with the webinar earlier, that was like 3 hours. Well, we would categorize it as one talk and just put it in like one file. You would break that down and put it into separate folders.
Yeah.
For each problem.
Right.
Because earlier this section have a different topic. Like the first one is what is it? Like this in general. Yes. So it's 3 related topic. Maybe we're gonna talk. Yeah, we're gonna cover the 6 and 3 the guys.
And even in the women power, you can break it down into multiple different topics. Let's say she talks about, I want to build this business, so later I can be an architect by passion, not by responsibility, not because I have to. So when I heard something like that, I label it as passion. So later I run into people that have passion problem, I can address it.
Yeah.
Now, who taught me things like this? I had to learn to develop my way to remember information longer, and that was developed throughout the years I went to middle school, high school, college. There wasn't a particular class of teaching me on this. That's why I refer to book smart. So if I send a case and someone could break it down into pieces, sections, and then they know which section is the part that they're missing, and they ask me right on that section, I know that guy has the ability to break things down. I look at the question, it's very general, he didn't get it. And then the next day, he take that part home and he educate his team, just from the same case I sent him. I know the guy already get it and also have a good self-image to deliver that again. You know, so I can just look at the questions and the action, I can tell how fast somebody pick up information.
So how about like when we let's say we hear that same thought and we can break it down to like what they say level 3 to level 2, but then level 1 is like the root problem and we're not able to break it down to the root of main, you know, like mental toughness, mental, you know, capacity or something like some of these like major topics, and that's where we get stuck. We're not really connected to a major topic.
So I'll give you an example. It will take you back to the situation earlier when we DTM, we get rejected. Some people were thinking we have technique problem. I'm thinking it was self-image. See that part, the connecting the dots. It's the diagnosis. Sometimes you can't figure things out on your own. You have to look at how your upline doing a few times. So one of the very important golden questions you always need to ask is, why did you decide to talk about that? Why did you say that guy is slow? Why did you guys say that that guy is fast? Why did you label that problem as, you know, lacking of mental toughness? What did you look at? So you learn how other people, they diagnose or they troubleshoot the problem, they find that root problem a few times, then you get an idea. When you're looking at that, you start getting a formula, a pattern in your head. That this is what we always refer to as, see, let's say I use the term weak. You use the term like normal ideal, for example. So after we have a conversation, slowly that will be synced up. Okay, so Phil, when you're saying the guy is slow, okay, so now I get an idea. What do you mean by slow? Because in my mind, it's different thing. You know, so we all have a different way to diagnose a problem or call a label or name for a problem, or like be able to kind of like take the problem, identify the root cause of the problem. We just have to really sit down very often and develop that curiosity and ask. You know, the person, this entire group, the person that, you know, asked me the most about this is Juan and Luke. Why did you decide to touch on this? Why do you see that? Those things kind of help them to grow that, you know, ability to see things the same way I see. You know, some people, they ask the same thing 4 times to get it. Some ask 1 and twice just to get it right away. And if you start that today, it will take about a few months, few years till you're becoming synced up completely with your upline. It's not like you get it right away. You know, so like I went to Canada. Suddenly Wesley kind of bring up the terms. He called it capacity. What he refers to is the mental capacity, but he doesn't have a name for it. He just called a random name like that, and it just happened that okay, that's what we call it too. Well, you know when he say when I call some IBOs are very like process focused, or I say somebody is very you know, emotionally driven rather than situational driven. You know, when I say those terms, it means somebody, they do things because they like it. But sometimes when you describe that person to me, you only say he's very emotional. So then I don't understand what you mean by it. So then I have to go see the guys. And after I see the guys, I call the guy a few names. And now the processor kind of get it. Oh, okay. So the next time I should have called this person such and such. And then some IBO get lost. They listen to this term called, let's say, victim mentality. Let you say. They heard that term a lot of time, or they heard it from the newspaper or from the internet, and suddenly they go and they say, "Hey, that guy has a victim mentality." Their dictionary is different from mine. So when I heard that word, I don't feel it that way, and so I have to slowly sync up again because we all have a dictionary. So the best way for us is kind of synchronize us. It's you have to learn to explain and give me a example of why you say somebody is slow. What do you mean by that? Oh, so that he's not that slow. To my definition, he's decent. You know. So when we are new, when we talk, we have to start giving a lot of example.
What is the difference between a person who asks you 1 to 2 questions to get it versus the one who asks 4 to 5 questions to get it? What's the difference between those people?
If you ask a question and you narrow it down, the narrowest you can, you get the most accurate answer. I'll give you an example. If you listen to why employee can't start business, if you say, "Hey Phil, when you touch on the topic of resistance," so then I know exactly what part you're talking about. Then I could answer for you. But now you don't ask me that question called resistance. You ask me, "Hey, that talk, how do you challenge people?" Oh, so broad. Where? I challenge the whole audio. What are you talking about? Have I ever not challenged people? But I couldn't give an answer. So that question is just too broad. That's number one. Number two is when I'm giving out an answer, they're not looking at that answer from the perspective of repeating it. You can't say you understand something until you repeat it. But how many people remember the last example I sent to you about Charlene? She tried to memorize the 10 zone. She just say she got it. Her got it, it's memorization. My got it is repeating. So we got 2 different dictionaries. So the guy thought he got it, the next time he didn't get it. When I say I only get it when I can repeat it, and when I say I could repeat it, I also know which scenario that I'm gonna repeat it in the future. You know? Yeah. Sometimes Leo say, "Hey, I can repeat it," but he can't tell what scenario to repeat. He thought he got it, then he going back the next time to ask me again because he didn't get it. So that defines why some people take it faster, some people take it longer, because you can't think of the scenario in the future where they're going to apply this conversation, this talk. It's less simple.
To follow up with that, what do you think is the thought process of this person who think that they can repeat what you just said? Like, what's the thought process of that person? Like, how do they process that?
Why do you want to repeat to do what other people do? Because you want to have what they have. Very simple. I mean, in order for Ali to be where he is, he has to be able to teach something that people can't. So if I can teach what he teaches, I can have what he has. It's that simple. So, I mean, most of you guys don't have the intention to repeat, to teach back. So it just ties back to the why. Because I want his life. Sometimes your why is not you want someone's life, you just want to repeat it back. It could be because you want recognition. Because when you say something like that, people are like, "Oh, wow, that's amazing. Ooh, that's a good job." And it depends on your why, that you want to replicate something.
So there's no specific answer to that question. So everybody will have their own way to know how they can repeat what you just teach.
Wait, that's a different question. What you asked me earlier, you say, what's the thought process somebody want to repeat? So I referred as a why. Why would someone want to repeat? The second question you asked me is how? How do we repeat? I mean, if you want to ask the second one, then there's not the same way. Why would someone repeating it? Someone want to deliver it? How you arrange information in your head is different from how I arrange it. when you deliver, it's different.
Yeah. So,
Be careful, okay?
well,
There
I
are
guess.
pretty girls out there. That's why.
So, going back to your point.
Continue answer the question.
So when you repeat it, when you kind of teach back, for example, see, my delivery is tied to the examples, my examples, because and those examples came from a different experience that you had. I'll use the egg on a rock example. You might use lion and egg and frog. I mean, you refer to different things. You know, yeah, everyone has different way to deliver, right?
The same language.
Right. Or maybe sometimes there are people that have a very rich vocabulary. They know everything. Or there are people that they're very very literature. You know, and some people they have a different way to describe something. So I'm not getting into that. I'm just saying, is it efficient? Can't the person get it? Right? So that's my style. Some people, with their delivery, it's never about people getting it, but can people feel motivated? It touch people's heart. So that I won't try to control that. You know, but I'm just saying at least you guys all have to get to a minimum level, and that minimum level is when you listen to something, can you at least break it down, those information, into the little small pieces, folders, topics? You can save it longer. And then I'll answer this. And then now the next challenge for you is a year from now. How would you sit here and repeat today's talk?
I didn't get that part.
See? Yeah. So, you know, today it's the first time you're listening to it. So you're just trying to kind of process it first. But then the next time when I'm taking you to, let's say, Phoenix to build a team, and you start seeing me saying the same thing with the person sitting there, the second time you're trying to kind of repeat it. But where did I learn it from? Every single time I see my outline deliver something, they didn't need a note. They just say it loud. So I'm always curious of how did you do that? And then figured out a way that I can remember my information longer. Like I'll give you an example. This thing, January, February, March. Someone came up with a brilliant way to remember it. You have to be that brilliant in knowing yourself.
More simple for you to.
And your symbol is not my symbol, and my symbol is not yours. Because when I say, let's say I try to remember something, right? Because I attach that concept with the past experience that I went through. You didn't go through that past experience. How can you get my formula? Well, I'll give you an example, okay? When I try to deliver a talk, I always associate that topic of, let's just say, resistance to. You always see me using the example of parents and kids and what they teach you when you were young, because that's exactly what I heard when I was young. I had that experience, so I remember those kind of examples longer than most of you guys do, because I had that experience. So if you want to deliver that topic of resistance, you have to figure out a certain examples that is associated with your experience in the past. That is the only way you can memorize longer. Because I always use the workout, the gym, and the parents, because that's something I went through. You know, so sometimes Ali using some sort of those examples, like he talked about the law of gravity, and he talks about if the kid, he can be ignorant. If he jump off the building, it's going up or down. I can't use that example. Do you know why? Because Ali used to read a newspaper that there's a kid, 3 years old, fall off the building, and he's still alive. So he used that example. I can't, because I've never read that newspaper. So if I'm talking about gravity, the law of gravity, I'm gonna have to use some different example. It's like, you know, one of my jumpy friends jumped on me. See, that is something that happened before. See, that, you know, yeah, that happened before. Or, you know, if I talked about, you know, a gay guy jumped on me. That happened. Yeah. So that is my example. I'm using that.
So like, for example, I had a meet and greet one in front of me, a meet and greet during meet and greet one recently.
Are you asking the following up on that?
I don't have any other context because I just understand it on the theory level. So let's take why entrepreneurship as an example. But what I'm sharing is gonna be related to that. Why entrepreneurship has different topics, different categories. How can we know it's love, self-love, self-image, and we take that and put it to
Are you talking about entrepreneurship or are you talking about what?
So it's like for you can go out and identify the problem and group it, but for us, it's like I think you're asking how do you identify like which category what?
But for us, like we never have that much experience.
It's very easy. If you listen to my self-love talk, I've used a few examples in there, right? Which is, can't say no to a family to go to a meetings.
Yeah.
You looking at it as selfish. I'm looking at it as self-love. Why? If I say no to my mom later, I can keep her back. I can say yes to her 10x, a lot more, right? So now, if tomorrow your candidate is not saying, I can't go to meeting because I have a dinner. This time it's a girlfriend, boyfriend kind of thing. Would you associate my example that I talked about mom meeting to that same girlfriend? The guy has a self-love problem. That's how we label it, self-love. Now we know what's the problem with the girl. The guy, he's people pleaser.
Yeah.
Like not just in a method you have to understand it.
Understand it, yeah.
The consequence.
You don't learn it by you know each situation. You have to learn by the similarity. 2, 3, 4, 5 situations. They all have the same problem of learning to say no to family. They see it as selfish.
Say no to family. That's the key.
That's the key because they all this one is the dinner. This one is not the dinner, but this one is more like doing homework for the girlfriend or maybe. Yeah, it's the same thing, you know. So, you know, so when you learn things, you have to pay attention to those examples that I use, and I'm not using one example in the talk. I'm using 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. When I refer to self-love, I'm not talking only about the dinner with the mom. I'm talking about afraid to bother the upline. When you bother the upline, you're thinking that you are no. It might take your time. You know, I can't. You thought that you're loving your up. You thought that you're loving your upline by leaving them alone. But reality is that's how they burden you forever. Is it similar to the example of your mom, which is you thought that you're staying home, which is you love them, but reality is they burden you forever. Those are the similarities. So now when you're going out there and you're seeing certain people that they thought they love you, but reality is they actually you have to burden them forever. And that's a self-love problem.
Find the similarity.
Yeah, I think it's like my problem too. When it comes to learning cases, I'm kind of like learning by situation. I want to just sharing that we find out a product in those scenarios, and that's how we get out the similarities. So then next time we can recall it. For me, I learned by like situation, like learn by the context. The context.
Because you cannot find similarity in different situations. You know, that thing I don't know how to teach. For example, you're playing game and they say spot out the difference between this left side and the other right side, and or maybe you're looking at like, you know, this you try to find a pattern of that series of number 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. Those are only odd, right? And then there's a certain number that can only divide it by itself in one. What do you call that? Round number, right? And so in that whole odd number, what is the number that stood out? You know, 7, 9, 11. Which one stood out? It's 9. Because 7 and 11 can only divide it by itself, or maybe 1. But 9 can be divided by 3. So I'm just using that as an example of how you can be able to spot out what is similar and what is different.
So like, for example, if you give us like 5 cases, but it's actually all different situations, but it's all the same problem.
It's the same problem, it's only like 30 to 40% different, but like 60, 70, 80% the same. It's what's similar is that common root cause, so then we can call it that same root cause problem.
Wait, hold on. I was like, share what's clear. Wait, here. I shared early. This is what I saw on my candidate, right? So when you mentioned that, I think of my candidate, the one I did the knee re-zero with. He said terms like this is Katie. Sorry, I just, you know, I get distracted and talk, not because you were talking wrong, so I get distracted.
He's practicing, you know, repeating right now.
Okay. But there are some things she said that I have no direction in life, like, I don't know, like, society tell me this, tell me that, and I think, oh, this girl has low self-image, and also lack of critical thinking. You know, when she mentions certain words, I see the pattern of whatever you say in the video, oh, this girl has that problem, and I connected to the video, it makes sense. He said like, oh, I have no long-term goals. I dig deeper, and the root cause was just lack of critical thinking and low self-image. Why she didn't have long-term goals? Because she just followed whatever people tell her, but they didn't think for herself. And then she got confident that she could make her own decision too. For example, they relate to the talk you talked about. That's how I think connected. So that's what I'm trying to like understand more. Yeah.
That's true. So you can also learn how I diagnose problems. You know how? Suddenly you start seeing me training certain topics. Oh, so then when he talked about that, which means you saw something in that guy that he was very robotic. So then he decided to touch on that. But after the meeting, I would ask, so where did you see from his question or statement or behavior that make you think the person having that problem? So I can show you how to spot out the little things.
That's how you can track it, right?
Right. Now, so just because somebody go to Berkeley, top university, it doesn't matter, then they have this. Because their entire goal is to memorize information and pass the test. But they're not trying to look into apply that information to a future scenario. So they're lacking of that practicality. Does it make sense? Applying, they're not looking to repeat that to different personality, different age group to understand, and you're using an example that is relevant to them, or using that to apply in a future scenario. So when I'm saying some certain people they're very book smart, I only refer to the ability to take note, remember it longer, but to repeat it, to teach it back, you also need that street smart, that EQ. You know, the delivery, it's, you know, combining to that.
Well, Phil, I have a question though. But you can identify like at least a specific problem with people, but then even when you're even in order, like you order in a specific way to cover the problem in a specific order. And how do you choose that? What to cover first versus what to cover later?
Simple. If I meet somebody after follow-up 1 or one-on-one, I knew the material that was covered before that. I knew the step that they went to, MG1, MG2, what was covered in that, and what was covered in those CDs. Because the processor updated me, he shortcut MG1, he shortcut MG2, he cut down this material, then I knew what to cover. So let's say Alina brought me this Yuki girl, and she said she did not listen to second look meeting, the 10 values. So normally, I need the person to listen to the 10 values, so then I could help her to compare between the lifestyle of people in here, the 10 values, versus her families, the people that she looks up to in her family. She didn't listen to this part. How the heck could I compare? Then I have to repeat the 10 values talk. But if it was she already listened to it, it's easy for me. I'm just doing my comparison. I'm going to showing her, ask her a few questions. She has to admit that the live in here has what she wants. You know? Yeah.
So I have a question earlier about like the example you used like a prime number and everything in math, because just from my experience, when you learn in school, and they teach you the concept first before they give you the cases and the example. But sometimes we forward cases to like announcement and everything. So you just forward the case, but then sometimes it's kind of hard for me to see concept, like the message that you're trying to convey in that. Yeah, like you name the problem.
That's why that's the same question what someone asked earlier. So if I trained about something and you don't know why I talked about it, just remind me about 1 or 2 or 3 sentences or example. If you remember earlier, you mentioned A, B, C, D. Why did you touch on that? What do you call that?
That's how you can get the concept then.
Yeah.
If you see the example, then why not ask them?
That's how we sync up on the terms of our dictionary. We're seeing it the same way.
Okay, so like example for today's meeting, right? Stella set the stage earlier, like, oh, everyone here has candidates. We're leading to talk of like, oh, how can we help not only ourselves but also candidate internalize whatever information we give them as well, right? That's for example how it was set up. So like who asked the question earlier? It was just before Jay that question, but it just connected that for me. Yeah.
I wasn't there, so I don't.
You did answer like using the Paulina and Yuki example, but what I'm saying is today's meeting is also very similar in that way. So you're aware of what we're talking about, and that's why you can have the next steps to explain what we're talking about today.
Alright.
Yeah.
So any other questions on the same thing before we move on?
No, so do you mean that to really listen to your videos more effectively? So every example that you provide in the video.
Just one example like this. Like when the new video came out, no one would ever question me, why did I make that video? What is this video for? So the next few times when I'm going, I train a candidate or an IDO on the same topic. You're listening to it. Number one, you didn't listen to my talk earlier. So when you're seeing me repeat it the second time, you wouldn't know that I'm using that talk for this particular person. You don't know. So the next time, when I repeat that talk, you don't know what's the name for it, which is Fighting Your Ego Guild when being challenged, criticized, or punished, something like that. So there's certain little small names that we're making it for it. Like in the video, I mentioned the term baby step. So when I say the baby step, then someone already watched the video and knew what I talked about. But if you didn't watch the talk, nor that you're asking me why did I make the talk, then the next time when you looking at someone like this, I say, hey, talk about that talk. Just keep the person that talk. You would not understand why. When I recommend, hey Max, you should listen to this, you wouldn't understand why am I giving that. Because you never questions why did I decide to talk about that. Making that talk before, like months before, you didn't even question it. Yeah, so it's just the curiosity wasn't there. If you want to learn how to do this a lot, you need to ask a lot of more questions. But normally, if you're asking me questions, I love you to ask in public, because you know how many people would ask the same thing, right? Number one. Number two is, if you ask me something in public, sometimes your question is too broad. It's not narrowed down enough. And then by doing that in public, someone else is going to question you. or maybe answer for me, or they help you to rephrase your questions, then I can answer that a lot faster. Because sometimes it's so broad, like, Phil, what's your mindset of going platinum? Are you talking about relationship, or are you talking about like sleep habits, or are you talking about like my diet, or TV, or where? What are you talking about? Because my diet matters to platinum ship too. So if you eat the wrong thing, you cannot get enough sleep too. Yeah. Dangerous, yeah.
So talking about a person who can repeat today's topic, let's say the next week.
Okay, hold on. See, when you listen to something, you need to tie it back to your current goal. If his goal is recognition, then every talk matters to him now. If its goal is 2x5 or 3x10, do the people other than him right now needs to listen to this at the moment? Will the people that enter his team in the next 2 months need this talk at the moment yet? Is that something Kwan can teach for you at the moment? That is not your number one priority. How would I know something is not my number one priority? I need to have a goal. Because I don't see how this thing is going to speed up my process of getting 2x5, 3x10 done. What you can get out of tonight that's beneficial the most to you, it's how you can go back and learn everything more efficiently. Or maybe you can teach back faster, in MG1 and MG2, and, expedite those process, speed in the process for people. But other than that, why would you want to set a goal and repeating this talk? It's something that you need to challenge yourself, but it's not that urgent, you know what I'm talking about? When someone asks me a question, I can tell. What's their goal? It's very easy. They're not looking to get there. Because if I want to go 2x5, okay, now, can you fast forward to process? I'm done with this. I don't like the topic, Yeah, because when you listen to a talk, you have to connect it to your goal. If you can't see the connection, I'm going to start losing my patience.
So when you were talking about how people asking like broad questions, very general questions, I think that people in my team, they have that problem too. But the thing is that when the team is getting bigger, it's hard for me to watch all the streaming of them doing appointment, let's say. So when they ask the question, I have to asking back thousands of questions to really understand the context, because I wasn't there. So they was asking not all four questions, so I don't know how to reply.
Give one example.
So let's say they do the appointment and they were just asking I was sharing about this and that, but this guy wasn't moved on, something like that. It's very broad for me to know.
Too broad. Number one, we don't know if it's you're saying the thing that the guy's supposed to listen to.
Yeah.
Maybe what if you misidentified their problem? What if you identify the right problem, but you're saying it and the guy don't get it because the way you explain it is just too vague? Or what if the guy didn't even have a dream or why from the beginning? So it's not really about your delivery. Like the guy doesn't even have a why if you're trying to explain on how to read a book. He doesn't even want B21C. He doesn't even have a dream. So it's very tough to answer those kind of questions. Other than we have to really tack along with their appointments. It's gonna be a whole bunch of work, by the way. Yeah, that's why guiding people one-on-one takes so much effort. So how do we improve this? Some teams decide to not improve it. They triple, quadruple those work ethics and simplicity. The good things about people that they're not very book smart is they simplify everything and they don't lose energy. And they can do more and more and more and more. And they ended up finding guys like Luke and Julian who pick up information very quick and they're going through number to find those people. And if you don't see yourself developing that anytime soon, your job is just dropping a lot of legs. I'm just teaching this so that later, you know, you can, let's going back to what we talked at the beginning. Remember that? Why did we stuck at the same number? We can't teach it. We cannot reflect. Why can't we teach and reflect? It's the book smart thing. So I'm teaching this just for the 10-20% of people in this room that are brilliant enough to stand out, step up, and maybe slowly replacing the leaders. I do not expect the entire room to get it. If you can get it, great. If you're working, you're work in progress, awesome. But when you get it tomorrow and you delay everything, you stop sponsoring people, no. So I'm just teaching this because it's part of your journey to go platinum, but it's not part of your journey to go 2x5. Does it make sense? You will have to learn it eventually, but it's not that urgent. How to deliver better? Sometimes I deliver in the poor way. I went home, I couldn't sleep. I had to find the right terms and vocabulary and whatnot. Once I could deliver, I can lay the back of my head on the pillow, happily. Sometimes I forgot the vocabulary part. I dug up the entire vocabulary and where's my word? It's working in progress, guys. It's not gonna be done like tonight, tomorrow. At least I touched on it, so you know that you're just not good at it yet. So you're slowly working on it. So by the time 2028 comes, it's good. But if I don't mention this, when 2028 comes, nothing changes. It's the same. So I'm just mentioning it. It's not that urgent. You should work on it, but it's not that urgent. I'm planning to see, yes. So,
also, kind of similar to that, to work with someone one-on-one to get them to be able to identify the problem. I hear you talk a lot about that new conversation enters as something to continually get to the point to show that person and show someone like how to really break it down. So it takes time, but then usually you'll get an answer like, oh, I got it, you're only like 10% in. You're like,
you're got it. It's your 10, and your 10 might be my 3. So it's not entirely you didn't get it, but it's not you got it either. You know, because there's a scale. You can't just say got it or not getting it. You know, how much you got from it. So I'm talking about the ability to play safe. The people that don't end convo, they are more result oriented. They are more trying to get what they want rather than being right and wrong. Because when you're saying you got it, you've got a face. And when you're saying, I haven't got it, even though you already got it, you got the knowledge. So a lot of time, you know, Ali said certain things that I already know. But I'm not entirely sure if what he knows is what I know. So I'm just, it doesn't hurt to ask another questions and look stupid. It's okay. At the end of the day, what you want is diamond shit and be stupid. You know? Because a lot of people that are smarter, they're not having diamonds. So it's okay. You know, so I'm going to ask, okay, so what do you mean by that? Now, people get it theoretically. They won't get it when it comes to action, reality. Then when they start saying things like that, the moment that happens, you have to spot for them, because that is the only time they listen to it and they go, oh, okay, now I know what you mean. So I'll give you one example. When I say, hey, have you talked to Maya about the money thing? Yeah, I talked to her. I don't feel like that's something very urgent at the moment. Then I go, you know, there might be things that you haven't checked on her yet. Hey, yeah, we'll see if she get back to me. So you give me 2 statesmen, and I felt like you had a better hang on the situation than me. So then, if I get into it, then I have to go to Maya's side and do an investigation. What do you really mean? Did the guy check on you? How's the situation? Oh my God, it looks so bad. Then I'm come back to you and I say, it wasn't done properly at all. It's so much work for me. So I'm like, okay, I agree. So you didn't get a chance to pick up what I think about it. I would ask questions like, I might have done it, but there might be something that you saw that I did not. Did you see something in there that make you bring up this money concern? If she asked me things like that, I was, oh yeah, because this afternoon I saw her spend like something amount of money on this and that, and I saw she borrowing cross-line money and such and such. Oh really? I thought of that, Phil, but right now she's not very active. Why would you want to fix her? Then I go, oh no, you know, she is not active at the moment because she's fixing her condition. We need to fix her condition so she can be active. It's not because she's inactive so you fix it. It's because you fix it so she can be active. See, so that conversation flows. And then you realize that you misidentified where the problem is at. That allowed me to teach you how I have developed my business sense and how did I know which problem to fix. You can also ask follow-up questions like, why did you prioritize this problem more than the others? Well, our team has so many right now. And then I say, well, I didn't prioritize it, but it didn't take me a lot of time to fix it either. You know? Yeah, so sometimes the way that I choose which problem to fix, it's not really because of how prioritized it is, but how little energy I might have to consume. It might take from me. Because it's like 2 to 3 minutes, it's not a big deal. Do you know why you feel like it's not prioritized? Because you feel like it's going to be 5 hours, even though it's only my 5 minutes. So little things like that, it will take away your opportunity to learn how I dissect or evaluate a problem. Yeah. So even though we teach the conversation and there are things like that, but you have to point out for them. And when you point out for them, don't get mad at them. They might listen to you theoretically, but they cannot really tie back to certain scenario that they did it. They didn't know that was a conversation ended. So you have to teach them that, hey, by the way, I was about to say something right there. When you're saying something like that, I thought that I shouldn't just say anything because I felt like you knew more than I knew. But then, you know, I just want to bring it up just in case you weren't aware. And then I teach them, if I were you, I should have asked these following up questions in that conversation. Because you have to teach people how and what. You can't just say, you figured out on your own. This is how I want you to ask. Got it? Yeah. Okay, any other questions? We're good with these things, or you guys want to go the process or anything?
I think my question would relate to process because you mentioned how
you guys are cold, you can close a little bit.
Some people have a curious nature and others don't. And I think that translates to when people go out to do the work. Sometimes they don't deep enough or they don't know how to ask certain questions and they kind of would drop. But because they didn't dig deeper to know what the actual problem of the candidate, that's why they drop. So I'm not sure if it's like the curious nature they don't have or
one of the things that the entire team should need to work on, it's your ability to troubleshoot or diagnose. You know, you're talking to someone. That little thing come out from their mouth, you'll be able to call a name for it. You have to fix it. And I normally teach people that by guiding them through the entire process, but I can't teach the team now. Let's say there's a candidate sitting here, and I'm talking to her candidate. After the candidate is gone, how many people remember the last time when I sat here? There's a candidate of Nula sitting right there. There's Francis, and then also what's the other Tona, yeah. So remember that after the meeting, we replaced that with appreciation, conversation, talk. We didn't have a chance to ask, what did you see from your candidates? How did you rate their potentiality? What do you think? What material we should give next? Do you know why we're not always having this kind of conversation? Because you don't think this is the only solution to all of your problems right now. That if you have people launch, there's no way you get into any problems. A launch is everything. A launch is your belief. A launch is your responsibility. A launch is the money issue to be solved. The launch is you can deal with your family rejection better. The launch can deal with the school situation better. Because you don't think that's number one priority. That's why you're not looking to fix it. You're thinking that your emotion right now is caused by not having a dream. There's so many people in my team that having no dream, but because they got a team and the money comes from it. So slowly they stay. You totally misunderstood the situation. It doesn't take that much of a dream in order for you to go 3 by 10 and 4 by 25. That's a myth. You know what I'm talking about? See, so a lot of times you miss this situation. Or, I barely do any meetings for the AB team. The time that I did the most was back during COVID. And that was when you guys was inactive. Or you guys didn't get started at all. So, why do we have the culture? Culture like show up early, leaving late, ask questions, take feedback in a nice way, know how to take feedback. Those kind of culture. You know why we teach that? Because it's the easiest way to teach the concept. Most people following things habitually. They do it by habit. Teach people to get something takes longer than teach people to follow a habit. So I'm just still gonna instill a lot of habits into my team. But that's only short-term solution. A long-term solution is what? A long-term solution is they need to get it. They need to know why they're doing it. But meanwhile, some people, they can't get it right away. You still need to teach them culture. And I feel like some of the things in our culture is not good. Like, I'll give you an example. Remember the time we did the banquet? We didn't really step up to all of that? Yeah. But you guys started in, let's say, Toronto. You got in, you saw everybody around you step up, helping them do that. It's fun for me and but you would not know the bigger why. We need more, attract more people to go to Northtown. We need to have more events. So we need 5 days, and then we have more speakers over. And when we go to meet more people are going to serve us. That's the why, right? That can be taught along with it, or later when you become a leader. But at the moment, you need to learn what? Just learn it because it's a culture. Yeah. And we still haven't got that culture, the standard of doing things. So our team lacks a person that have a high standard or understand the culture. So they get irritated about everything. Like I went to a banquet, I'm getting irritated. I'm going here, I'm gonna get irritated. If you don't change your standard, it's very hard for you to get irritated about the people around you. Does that make sense? Like if I'm going here, for example. Now I'll give you one example. How many people were there on Friday night of Santa Cruz? Raise your hand if you were there Friday night Santa Cruz. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. How many of you asked questions during Q&A? That was a red flag to me. Maybe not a red flag to some of the leaders in here. That was a red flag to me. How the heck you have so many problems and you don't have questions? Don't you know how to form a question? Okay, let's sit down. I teach you how to form a question. I teach you how to get irritated about your situation. That's what it means by culture. You can't fix a culture when your standard is freaking low. I'm getting irritated. I'm walking to the room. It was warm. All the window was closed. How long can you stay focused in that environment? And little things like, but what about the food? In between there's a break. Where can they go and get the food? So it takes somebody with a high standard that get irritated. Some people, they have only high standard in certain areas like work ethics. But in terms of taking note, asking questions, curiosity, cash, You know, they don't get mad when the dollar is not doing it. Like for example, let's say Max decided to go MIA